Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled AND, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. Our first coincidence miracle of this week is something that happened to me personally. I went for my annual exam for my hearing. I wear hearing aids, and I went for actually it was a 6-month checkup. And when I went to the test, there was a new employee there who gave me instructions on what to do during the process. And the instructions were different than what I'd gotten in the past from the prior employee. And there were 2 employees there conducting the exam. But at the end of the conclusion of the exam, they told me that my hearing had deteriorated extremely, very much from what the prior year's rating was, and that I should now go see a specialist because things have really gotten pretty bad. And certainly that gave me a lot of concern, but I was feeling inspired within me that it wasn't really a problem, but I didn't know why. I was confused. Why was I getting inspired that it wasn't a problem when 2 people were telling me that it was a problem? So we concluded the appointment, and I walked out to my car, and while I was out in my car, I started praying for some wisdom because I didn't notice any serious change in my hearing. So things started to make sense. While I was praying for help, I got inspired with the following kinds of thoughts. Over the last 6 months, I've been actually hearing things better than I used to in the past. And it's especially noticeable when you're listening to a movie on television, because anybody who wears hearing aids knows that one of the worst problems when you're wearing hearing aids is to watch a movie, because the technicians who make the movie all have different settings and there's different levels of noise, etc., etc. So most people who have hearing aids have trouble listening to movies unless the hearing aids are precisely set correctly. So the bottom line was I kept getting inspired. Tony, you've been hearing better. And then I got inspired that some of the instructions I got from the new employee didn't make sense. Like in one case, he said, "You're giving me false positives." And I didn't even know what that meant. So I said, "What do you mean false positives?" He said, "Well, you're pushing the button that you can hear a sound when actually I'm not even sending you a sound." Now that kind of blew my mind because I was hearing something and I was pushing the button. So I thought the instructions must have been bad, and maybe that's the problem. It was a new employee and he gave me instructions that were bad. I didn't know what it was, but I was inspired clearly with a very clear message. Go back in and tell them that you've been hearing better over the last 6 months, not worse. So something's wrong with the test, or something's wrong with me pushing the button when I'm hearing sounds. Something is wrong, but it's not that my ears are getting worse, because I know my ears are getting better. So it became quite a challenge. I was inspired to do this, but I now was going to go back in and tell 2 experts, technicians who are trained to do this, that I want to retest because something they did wasn't quite right. That was challenging. So I asked for wisdom to say the right words. So I went in, and apparently I got the wisdom to say the right words, or when I said words, God had them hear different words. I don't know, that happened to me once at another meeting. I was saying one thing and the person was hearing something else. So maybe that's what happened in this case. But in any event, they both agreed, okay, look, come on back in, we'll give you another test. And they had an opening, a cancellation, so the timing worked out perfect. So sure enough, that's what happened. Well, not till the end of the story, but they gave me the test, and they told me, nope, Tony, the test is the same as before. You've got to go see a specialist because your hearing aid is worse. And now I was really perplexed because God inspired me that, I should go back, and God inspired me, and it was very clear to me. My hearing has gotten better. So I was frustrated and annoyed and sad and confused, and I was asking God for inspirations. I got inspirations that made sense, but now they did the test, and they tell me it's the same. So I'm walking toward the door to leave. I have to go make appointments to see a specialist now, but I'm sad and frustrated about it. And just as I reach for the doorknob to walk out of the office to get into my car, I reach for the doorknob and I hear somebody yelling in the back, stop, come back, stop, come back. So I turn around, and now both men were there, and they explained to me that they just discovered that the equipment they've been using for the tests they gave me is faulty. And the reason why the test was coming out the same and I needed to go see a specialist is because their equipment was faulty and giving me a bad test. So I went through this whole thing to tell you, when God is talking to you and you're asking God questions, do what he tells you. As a matter of fact, the most recent 3 popes have told the youth at the youth meetings that popes have around the world over the last, since 1986. But the most recent 3 popes have said to the youth the following thing: listen to Jesus, do what he tells you, and be not afraid. So one more time, the 3 popes have said to our youth, listen to Jesus, do what he tells you, be not afraid. Now we can apply that to us in this case, right? God was telling me, listen to me, do what I tell you, and don't be afraid. He told me to go back and tell them I needed a retest. And God is so beautiful because he had them realize their error just as I was grabbing the doorknob, perfectly timed. So we set an appointment to go back after they fixed the equipment. I did go back, and they did tell me, yes, you're right, your hearing has improved. And I got to tell you, the audience listening to me, I don't think my hearing improved really by their standards. It's probably because now they fixed the equipment and it's coming out better. Our next coincidence miracle is from a listener who tells us that they have been asking God, talking to God and asking him to help them make decisions. And since they've been doing that, they're pleased to tell us that they're making better decisions. And they liked our sharing one week where we talked about how the devil likes to cause stress, and the devil tries to rush us to make snap decisions, which causes us more stress. So asking God what to do is the right thing to do, and they're finding out it's true. They're very happy about the fact that we brought it up. They also had a recent case where their boss told them, don't disturb me, I'm in a meeting, I don't want to be disturbed. And something came up, and they got inspired to interrupt the boss, even though he had told them not to. And they did interrupt the boss, and the boss thanked them profusely because it was really important that the boss get an interruption at that right moment. I was shopping one day recently and passing out cards to people as I got inspired to. I don't give everybody I see a card when I'm shopping, but I get inspired to do or don't. I ask God. If I don't ask God and I offer people a card, sometimes they get into an argument. So if I ask God yes or no and he tells me give them a card or not, that's the best operation for me. So recently I was doing that, and I went to pass out a card to one woman, and she looked at me with a smile and she said, "I don't need that, sir, because I've been reading my Bible for the last 40 years and I do whatever Jesus tells me." And I said, "This is so wonderful." I said, "Listen, if you're doing whatever Jesus tells you, you're 100% correct, because that's what my books try to tell people." So we agreed she doesn't need a card. The next person I gave a card to, she started to cry. I was blown away. Why? I said, "Why are you crying?" She said, "I'm so happy you're giving me this card." She said, "My daughter is very ill in California, and we're in Connecticut, and I have to fly out there, and I hate to fly. I don't fly very much. I'm terrified about flying, but I've got to go see my daughter, so I'm so worried. I'm worried about getting on the plane, and I'm very worried about my daughter who's very ill. And I'm so grateful you're giving me this card." And I also gave her some miraculous medals to take with her on her trip. And so she was so happy. She said, I know God sent you to give me this card today and talk to me, because now I have more confidence and more peace. I've been terrified about going to California. This helps you understand why I pass out cards, because I've been doing this for many, many years. And when God says to give somebody a card, very, very often I have these experiences where they really need the card, or they really need to talk about God at that moment in their lives. I'm not clairvoyant, I don't know, but by talking to God and he inspires me to give people a card, I trust him, and it always turns out to be beautiful when I trust him. Another woman I handed the card to, she said to me, "Can you give me one reason why I should take this card and why I should Google it and look into your book?" And I asked God, inspired, "Please tell me, what should I tell?" He knows everything. I said, "God, what should I say?" He inspired me to tell her, "Well, there's one thing I'm inspired." I told her, I said, "I'm inspired to give you this as an answer, because there's probably 1,000 answers. But the answer I will give you is in the book of Mark, chapter 4, verse 15. Mark 4:15 says that when God's answers come to you, the devil comes immediately to confuse you and trick you." So when you're talking to God, you could suffer a lot of stresses if you're not asking God questions, because when God's trying to talk to you, you're going to get stressed and frustrated because the devil is trying to have you not do what God is telling you to do. She said, "I can't thank you enough, sir. I've been having stress for the last 3 days. I've been asking God what to do, and all I'm getting is more and more stressed every day. And I certainly needed the message. I haven't been asking God what to do and listening to what he said. I've been formulating answers in my head and getting myself crazy." Our next coincidence miracle is from a mother who tells us that both of her daughters texted her simultaneously at the same exact second as she was inspired by God to send them a text. So she got inspired to send them a text. While she was sending hers, she got simultaneously, both of her daughters were texting her at the same moment. Our next coincidence miracle is from a listener who tells us for the last 3 days they've been awakened 5 or 10 minutes before the alarm went off 3 days in a row. They're sure that God is doing it as a clue that he does talk to us. Our next miracle is I was inspired to text a friend of mine at 11:11 in the morning. It was 11 minutes after 11. She's always moved by seeing 3 ones in a row. So I texted her and said, "It's 11:11. May God bless you." And she responded, "Thank you. We are right at this moment. Our family is praying for our dog who is seriously ill. Please join us." God bless you all. I'll talk to you next week.